So if your financial stability and your security is not concrete, it's going to tumble, and everything else you do on top of that, it's going to fall with it. So it doesn't even matter that we're not even talking about investing yet, or having certain amount of assets, buying real estate. It doesn't matter if all of this is going to crumble with it. The following is for informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Please consult a professional before making any financial decisions. For your reference, our full disclaimer will be displayed at the end of the episode. Hello and welcome to the Building Wealth from Scratch podcast, where we talk about personal finance for first-time wealth builders. We are your hosts, Jerry and Bianca. Today's topic is how to build a financial foundation.
Yeah, and before we jump into today's topic, I want to go ahead and just give some updates of like what we have been up to. So we recently just came back from our trip to Cancun, and it was fun. It was my first time going. Jerry, I think you went when you were, like you said, 8 years old?
Yeah, about 8.
Yeah, so it was fun. It was fun going together. We went with my parents. They live in Chicago. We live in San Diego. So we met up in Cancun and we had a great time. We actually went to Chichen Itza. We did snorkeling, which was my first time snorkeling, and it was so much fun. I saw sea turtles, so that was like the highlight of my trip. What else? We were just like...
We were all over the place.
We were all over the place. We were definitely in the traveling more aspect, not so much vacation, like being at the beach.
No.
We didn't get a ton of that. But I just loved it so much. It was fun.
Highly recommend it.
We highly recommend it. I also felt like, I was like, well, is this going to be like super touristy? And it is, but I think I love like just going to Chichen Itza and really, like, I was mesmerized by the technology that they have. And
so if you don't know what that is, it's the Mayan pyramids.
Yes.
It's one of the Mayan pyramids is in Chichen Itza.
Right. But it just hit differently just being in person and really just soaking in like how much and how advanced these civilizations actually were. And I don't know, Jerry, what was your favorite part?
I think my favorite part was, having watched all these shows. I love ancient history. And so actually being there for the first time, there's nothing like it. I've been blessed with the ability or the option to have gone to the other pyramids in Mexico, in Teotihuacan, in Mexico City. And same thing, highly recommend it. Being Mexican American, that is our history. That's our lineage, and highly recommend that you go and experience it.
Yeah, I think that was probably why I felt like deeply connected this time, because it's actually one of the 7 wonders of the world. So I Googled it. And the Colosseum is also one of the 7 wonders of the world. And I've visited the Colosseum twice in Rome. And I think this one was just definitely, I felt more deeply impacted by it. And I think you're right. It has to do with that. It's part of our ancestry. And so I definitely recommend it even if you're not Mexican. It's still just an amazing experience. And then with that, we came back from our trip and we were just catching up. And then you are officially a certified financial planner. What does that mean?
What does that mean? Oh my goodness. That means there was a lot of work. For those of you who don't know, the Certified Financial Planner certification, it's a 4-part process. You got to pass an exam. You need to have at least a bachelor's degree. You need to meet a certain amount of hours in the industry conducting financial planning. And you also need to do a college level course of financial planning, or courses, pardon me. There's really 6 parts to that. So it's been a process. It's been almost 2 years since I started this process, and thank God I was able to finally be done.
Yeah, like he actually received, I want the audience to know this, just because like if someone is interested in becoming a certified financial planner, I like to call it like the doctor of like your personal finances. And it's pretty aligned and up there with the CPA license. It's like the highest license that you can get within personal finance. And you applied for the Kaplan diversity scholarship, and I believe they have one for the military as well.
They do, yes.
And you received that. That was I believe in May of 2023.
Correct.
And then you started the coursework.
Yes.
In June of 2023, and then you officially finished all that coursework in December of 2024.
Correct.
That took like about over a year. And then January, February, March, you were studying everything that you had learned for the past year and a half.
Correct.
And crunched it
for the exam.
Yeah. And then you passed the exam in March. And then I was like, woo, you're done. And you're like, I'm still not certified. Like, I passed the exam, but that doesn't mean that I'm an actual certified financial planner yet.
Yeah, you have to wait till they tell you that you are officially. And the part of the reason is because they have to do a background check. And then they also have to certify the exam results.
Yes.
So that's what takes about a month to do. So that's why.
Yeah. So this is a huge milestone. So I am extremely proud of you. And this is definitely like at least what made you want to get the certification to begin with?
I think for me, well, one, I want to make sure that I am helping my clients to the best degree I can. And really that only happens when you're willing to think outside the box and to continue to learn. Mm-hmm. Because as you know, and as you see on the economy and things like that, like everything is changing. You know, the next big thing is crypto.
Right.
As we've talked about numerous times on the podcast, the reality is that now with this current administration, they're talking about making it a reserve currency, that will definitely stabilize crypto a little bit, but that also means that the demand for it is going to go up. So I think that's the next certification that I want to get, is learn more about cryptocurrency so that I can make sure that I'm educating and guiding my clients to the best degree I possibly can.
Yeah, I love that. And with that, it's been an exciting year to begin with. We are Confianza Wealth Management is turning 1 year. Well, has turned already 1 year, right?
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to it's been 1 year of like launching this business, and
time flies by when you're having fun.
And I think I used to hate when you used to say that, because I was never having fun in my 9 to 5. I was, but I wasn't truly like passionate about the work that I was doing, versus now I'm doing more creative work, and I focus more on the marketing for the business. And that's more aligned with what, I think we actually got like our Mayan calendar, like analysis, and I'm meant to be creative and innovative, and I definitely feel like I'm doing that work now.
Absolutely.
And Jerry's meant to be a leader, and I definitely feel like as co-founder of the company, you're definitely doing that work. So I think we're definitely in the right track in growing our business. And for me, at least, I've always been curious about potentially becoming a CPA. So now I actually applied.
Yeah. She applied to SDSU's master's.
Yeah, Master's of Accountancy program. So definitely will give you updates on that, on what happens. I submitted my application on April 15th.
And she's also studying for her CPA license or certifications as well.
Yes.
There's 4 exams for that one.
Yeah, it's like a whole process. So it's just like the CFP and the CPA, it's some rigorous work, and it's possible. You just got to put the dedication, but I think you have to have a strong why of why you're doing it. And for me, I just feel like if I educate myself in this area, then I can help out more clients and people when they have those type of complex tax questions, versus right now I can only guide them, hopefully guide them into the right person. And for Jerry, I think now that you have the certification, it's like I know like I am giving the best possible value to our clients. So
Absolutely. No, and the key is to never stop growing. That's my philosophy. And regardless of where I'm at in life, I think if I stop learning or I stop growing, I won't be happy.
yeah, no, it's an ongoing, definitely. I think I'm in that mindset as well, that we never stop really fully growing, and it's never going to be like, okay, I'm done growing as a person, like with knowledge. And
No.
it's like, you have to, if you already have that in you, you're always going to continuously be building on. But I wanted to also say, like, we've had a lot of growth with our 9 to 5, and a big part of why we've been able to have all this growth is because we built our financial foundation.
I think what you're trying to say is the reason we were able to leave our 9 to 5s to start our business was because we had a financial foundation.
Correct. Like, we had a financial foundation that really allowed us to, leave our 9 to 5 and really go after the dreams that we felt very passionate about. And so that's why this topic today is very important. And with that, Jerry, what's the most important part of building a financial foundation?
Well, I would say there's at least 3 parts to that. If only it was just one thing, right? That would make it so much easier. But the reality is that finance is pretty complex if you allow it to be. So I would say the first part to building a solid financial foundation for yourself is first you have to identify your attitudes, your beliefs, and your values towards money. And that's something that most people don't talk about. I mean, again, because it's getting into the warm and fuzziness of how you are as a person, your emotional state when it comes to money. But the reality is a lot of us have history, have trauma, have, certain experiences with money that, whether we were kids or when we were adults, that carries with us. And that's how we see money as we continue through life. So in order to build a solid foundation, you first have to identify, how do you feel about money? Is it something that you grew up hearing that money is, the devil's work and this, that, and the other? Or do you see it as a tool? Or better yet, do you see money as a tool to get you to where your core values as a person are? And that's step one. And that's why I always ask my clients, the very first meeting is I ask them what's important about money to them. That question opens up so many Pandora's boxes, but at the same time, it gets to the core of what is important to you. Because most people always want to put a dollar amount. They always want to say, oh, I want to achieve X amount. I want to save this much. I want to buy that brand new car. But the real answer is why. What's really important about that car? What's important about saving that much money? What's important about sending your kids to college? That's right. The important part of financial planning. And that's step one in any financial foundation. You have to really understand why financial foundation is important. Because the reality is life is always going to happen. And common events, like we just talked about, being able to launch our business by having a financial foundation. And we're going to get more into detail about what exactly that really means. But I'm just going to start highlighting the why. Like, why is having a financial foundation important? Why should you take action? Well, because you never know. You might lose your job, or you want to change your career. There's the 3 Ds in finance is called death, disability, and divorce. Those are the 3 biggest disruptors of financial income and financial stability in any household. Aside from all the other stuff, financial losses such as, accidents, auto accidents, in California, the wildfires, things like that. Liability, getting sued, or God forbid you get a diagnosis, a medical diagnosis that's going to cost a lot, and or you don't have the right coverage to help you with that. So all these things are always happening in life. So if your financial stability and your security is not concrete, it's going to tumble, and everything else you do on top of that, it's going to fall with it. So it doesn't even matter that we're not even talking about investing yet, or having certain amount of assets, buying real estate. It doesn't matter if all of this is going to crumble with it.
Are you ready to start building wealth? We will be hosting a free webinar, Get Unstuck with Your Finances, What Most People Get Wrong About Wealth, on Wednesday, July 9th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we will talk about why most people never reach financial freedom and the step-by-step process to break this cycle. After the webinar, we will be offering a 48-hour bonus for webinar attendees. We'll put the link below to sign up for the webinar, and we hope to see you there. The loss of income is something that can be very terrifying to people, especially when, there's, things that we can't control, right? Like, we can't control getting fired or laid off. We can't control, like, what's going on in the economy. Mm-hmm. So what we can control is, like, actually doing the effort to build that financial stability. And a big one, like, I think for me that I realized, and this has to do a little bit more with my scarcity mindset, when I feel like when I didn't have a solid financial foundation, I had a fear of, like, asking for a raise. Mm-hmm. I just feared, like, what if they end up, like, not liking me because now they know that I want more money? But versus once like we had that financial security, I was like, okay, like, I have nothing to lose because I have that backing of myself, that if they don't want to give me this raise that I feel I deserve, now I have options to control that and to start looking at, okay, now let me look for another job opportunity. And just, it helps with confidence. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And moving away from that scarcity, which, that impacts, and that goes back to the money mindset where it impacts.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to the goals. Again, financial security is not just a phrase. It's a lot more into that. And you just said it, peace of mind, having confidence,
right?
Having the ability to navigate life when life happens, that's huge.
Right. And I also feel like we went through this when we first built our emergency fund, was like using it. Like, one thing is to build it, but the other thing is once you start using it and you're like, oh my gosh, my savings are dwindling. But I think it's like reminding yourself that this is why you built this financial foundation, so that you can have that peace of mind.
Right.
You can have that financial security.
And again, it's not because you're using it to buy a brand new car or to go buy clothes or things like that. It's to build that foundation so that you can do the things that you really want to do that are important to you. So in this case was launching our business. Launching a business is not something easy to do or that it happens overnight. So we needed that financial security to make sure that we can do the right thing for our clients, build this the right way without having a fear of running out of money. And
right.
That's the crux of why most people never start a business, because they have so much fear of that.
Right.
Because they're just not prepared.
I think those are some key points that I wanted to share that are, I think that we've learned as we've built our financial
absolutely
foundation.
And you kind of touched on it, market, economic conditions. You don't want them to dictate when and you can buy a house, or when you can do this, or when you can do that, or you need the money because you need it and now you're worried because the market is down. Again, that's where asset allocation comes in. You want to make sure that your money is where you need it to be when you need it.
Right. And I want to share this one powerful thought that was, like, shared with me. It's the moment to buy a house, the moment to buy it and I feel like this translates also to investing, is not when it's like the perfect market.
No,
it's when you're ready.
It's when you're ready.
Yeah. Because if it's like you're waiting for that perfect opportunity,
good luck. You're going to be waiting for a while.
So, and I think that was like, even when we bought our home, that was like a lot of the people were, this was in 2020. We started looking in 2020. Everybody.
And it wasn't because we timed the market. It wasn't because we were just, oh, this is perfect. We were just like, we're ready.
We were like, we're ready.
We're ready. It didn't matter. And
what's going on?
It just so happened to be that we bought at the right time, but that wasn't the goal. The goal was to just get a house.
And everybody kept saying, right? Everybody kept saying, well, at least to me, they were like, "This, I'm waiting for the housing market to crash again." Yeah. Like the houses are overinflated, and look at it, look at it now. Like it's crazy. Like
and at one point they were right, but the reality is what they didn't expect was that the pricing kept going up because the demand was just so high because there's just not enough houses out there. That's the crux of the issue. It's not that we're building so many houses so that we can keep up with the demand. We're not. And that's the problem. That's why housing is just continues to go up, because there's just more and more people looking to buy, and there's not enough houses out there to meet the demand.
Right. And so I think with that, I'm just like, I wanted to share that you have to focus on what exactly is important to you despite all of that. And when you build that strong financial foundation, those distractions are not going to deteriorate you or deter you from going after your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bianca did share the meat and potatoes of today's presentation with mentioning the emergency fund. But before we get to the emergency fund, we got to tie it all together, because without the emergency fund, without all these other things, the emergency fund is only going to do so much. And I love football, so American football, so I always use it as a good analogy. You have an offense and a defense. And when it comes to building a financial foundation, everyone always just worries about the offense. They think about investing. They think about, investing in real estate, stock market, crypto, whatever, commodities, but they never think about their defense. And that's what protects everything. And that's not including life insurance. I mean, obviously that's part of it, but that getting even deeper than that, assessing your disability insurance, your property and casualty, making sure you have enough coverage, because that is your defense. That's what's going to protect the assets so that you don't have to worry about grabbing them at the worst time, because everything else is taken care of.
Right.
And the first step is understanding, just doing an assessment. What is it that you have? Do you have a group term policy at work, or do you have your own policy on your own? Your disability insurance, understanding how it works, understanding the elimination periods. That's where the emergency fund is going to come into place, because the disability, if God forbid you were to get disabled, they're not going to pay you out right then and there. It takes 3 to 4 months before you receive any paycheck. So you got to cover your bills between that time.
I know insurance is not the most exciting topic. And for us, a big one, I feel like when we first started with our financial journey, we were taught that life insurance is to build wealth. And then obviously we've been doing this for quite some time now, and we learned the true purpose of life insurance. And it's not to build wealth, it's to preserve wealth. It's really there to back you. And I think the easy example is when you get in a car accident, right? You're not going to get richer from your auto insurance. They're
there to make you whole again. That's it.
You're just going to get a car back again and replace what you already had. That doesn't mean that you got richer from that. And the same thing applies to all these different. And I think the most common one we always think of is like auto insurance, homeowners insurance, sometimes life insurance. But you just named what was it, 8 of them or 6 of them?
Unemployment insurance, workers' comp, disability insurance. Right. And the other thing with disability and workers' comp, and even unemployment, if you've ever been on unemployment, they don't pay you what you were making. That's not the purpose of them. They're just there to help you as you navigate this, block on the road. That's why most disability insurances, the max they will cover is usually about 70% of your paycheck, because the goal is for you to not live on it forever. They want you to go back to work. So you got to make that difference up. And if you don't have the savings for that, you're going to be hurting.
Right. That's the last thing that you want. And I think a lot of us don't like to think about these scenarios happening, or we get anxious when they do happen. And it's important, like the peace of mind is going to come with when you are covered in all those aspects.
Right. Or at the very least, you understand what you have or what you don't have.
That's
so that you
as
can
well.
navigate that. You know, God forbid it never happens, but if it does, at least you'll be more prepared.
Right.
So all those things, what do they all have in common? Well, they all go back to the emergency fund because they all have elimination periods or deductibles or things like that that you have to pay for. So where are you going to get that money from? That's where the emergency fund comes into play. It's there when you need it, not when the timing is right. None of that. It's always there. It's just waiting for that moment when hopefully it never comes, but if it does come, you have it ready. So now let's talk about the emergency fund. So what is an ideal emergency fund?
Okay, so I wanted to share because when we first started, I thought an emergency fund was your income times however many months you wanted to start with.
So in other words, you thought that if we make, $2,000 a month, your emergency fund should be 2,000 times 6 months.
Right. Yeah.
Now that is not a bad idea, but the reality is if you don't have an emergency fund, at the very, very least, you want to start with just your expenses. That's it. Now, if you can max it more and save more into your emergency fund so that it pretty much replaces your entire monthly income, that would be great. There's nothing wrong with that. But to just get the ball rolling, just to get the bare minimum, you want to at least just account for your expenses.
And I think the bare minimum expenses, right? Like
the things that you cannot live without. So paying your mortgage, paying your rent, paying your utilities, paying for your groceries, paying for your gas. The essentials, not to go on vacation, not to go to Disneyland, none of that, just the essentials that you need to live.
Right. No, I think that was like a big difference that I think I started learning once we, went, had our own financial planner. It was like, no, this is ideally where we want you to be. And I think that was helpful to know, because sometimes you're just like, is this enough? Like, well, this is what I think it would look like. But just having that advice really helped out, because I was like, man, that's just going to take us forever to get to that number. And
that's what you don't want. And that's what happens to a lot of people is they get discouraged, and you don't want that. You want them to stay motivated. You want them to keep saving.
Yeah.
So that's why we focus. If you don't have any savings, let's at least get to the bare bones. Let's just start there, and then from there we can get even better, more granular.
Yeah, and I think for like, I remember Dave Ramsey, he does like his step one, I think it's like 1,000 in an emergency fund. And so I used to get mad because I was like, what is 1,000 gonna do? And this was like back 7 years ago. So now the way I look at it, it's not, of course, $1,000 is not an emergency fund, but at least it's the thing to get you started. And then from there, bump it up to like 1 month of emergency fund, 2 months, 3, 4, and build your way up. Because if you start off with, and you don't have anything, and you're going to go from like, now I want a 6-month emergency fund, you're going to get discouraged so fast. Like once you start doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is figuring out how many months worth of savings do you need. And again, it depends on each household, but rule of thumb is if there's only one income coming into the household, you want 6 months. There's multiple streams of income. And I'm not saying that's because I have 3 jobs. That's still one income because it's one person that's generating all that. But if there's different people generating different incomes, then I would say maybe 3 months would be good. But for the most part, 6 months is ideal.
Yeah, I think that's important to consider, like if it's like like just one income, or if it's
Right.
like there's 2 incomes or 2 people in the household that are bringing in funds. Yeah.
Correct. Because again, if I were to become disabled and I'm the one that has 3 incomes, it's still me. And if I can't generate those three incomes, we're still going to feel it at home.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I like using examples because that's the way I learn, at least. Like, that's the way I can sometimes interpret information a lot better. So I think that was a good rule of thumb for us. Like, when we got that analysis of like where exactly we needed to be with our emergency fund, because basically our financial planner was like, it's both of you because you both work. And so it would look a little different if I didn't work, but you worked, you know? So that also takes into consideration how much you should save.
Yeah. So where should your emergency fund be saved?
Oh, it should be cash under the mattress. No,
Under the mattress.
I'm just kidding. No, but that was our parents' generation. That was how they saved their money because they're at least my grandparents, they grew up during that, like, where they didn't trust banks. Mm-hmm. That era of, so that's why it was like under the mattress was the way to save money. But obviously we're not in that era, and hopefully you're not doing that. So
I mean, there's nothing wrong with having cash. I wouldn't say have all of it in cash, but there's nothing wrong with having some cash.
Of course, yes.
You know, because there's a I won't even go
there.
No,
don't even go there. I know where you're going. No. But I think you want to be receiving some type of interest on your money.
Right. So you want some cash equivalent.
Right.
So it's not necessarily has to be paper cash, but it can be in a savings account, a checking account, money market account, a CD. So pretty much all these accounts that you can open at a local bank or a regional or national bank.
Yeah. I know, like, a popular one that, you know, I feel like gained great momentum online is like the high yield savings accounts. And I love when you explain like why we were gaining so much interest.
Great question. Or why are we gaining so much right now? Well, that's because in order to combat inflation, the Federal Reserve had to raise rates. So when they do that, that means that they are now charging banks more money to lend them money. Because you got to remember, banks are in the business of lending money. So they lend it to me, they lend it to you, whether it's in a mortgage, whether it's in an auto loan, credit card. That money doesn't just show up out of nowhere. The government already printed that money. So when the government prints money, inflation goes up because there's more money supply. So to combat that, they have to raise the rates so that the banks minimize the amount of money they're lending and they give more of it back to the government. So in order for them to make more money, they're like, hey, well, if the Federal Reserve is going to charge us 6% to, let us borrow this money, why don't we just give it to Bianca for 4% or 5%, and she'll give us the cash that she has on hand, and then we can go out and lend it to somebody else for 15%. So now we're saving money from having to use the Federal Reserve, and then we're also making money because we're going to lend it to somebody else for almost double what we're going to pay you. That's what's going on right now. The Federal Reserve did say that they are going to start lowering rates. The president actually said that he wants them to start lowering rates even faster because they had originally announced that they were going to lower it by 0.5% to 1% this year, in the entire year. I'm sorry, 0.5%. 1% would be crazy. 0.5%. But now the president is saying because of what's going on with the current market and the conditions with the tariffs and all that, he wants them to start lowering it now. So what does that mean? So when they start lowering that rate, the banks are going to start paying you less because now they can borrow from the Federal Reserve for way cheaper and they don't have to pay you anything. So we're going to most likely go back to the way things were, where usually banks would pay you less than 0.5%.
Right. But there's pros and cons to both sides. And also, for reference, we are recording in like end of April, so a lot can happen by the time we release this episode. But I think there's pros to cons to each. Like, for instance, a couple years ago when the interest rates were so low, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that was the moment of like buying houses. Like, so there's just like, obviously there's gonna be opportunities,
right?
And right now we're in the opportunity of getting that high interest rate, but
Correct.
obviously that comes at a cost. And the same thing when the interest rate drops, like there's just always going to be something I want to say like compensating.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there's nothing free. So right now, so what does that mean for us right now? Let's just use a perfect example. So right now you can get a high yield savings account for, at a big bank for maybe 4%. So what does that mean? That means that now the stock market has to work even double, because now they know that money, somebody can automatically earn 4% for no risk at a bank. So now the stock market has to work even harder, because the purpose is that the way the stock market works is that you earn more. There's a potential to earn more reward for the amount of risk you're taking on. So that's why it's also, you see a lot of fluctuation in the market, because if all this continues to happen, aside with all the tariffs and all the other stuff that's going on, they have to keep that equilibrium where they have to continue to out earn at least 4%, because that's the risk-free rate.
Right.
So when the risk-free rate goes down, the market's going to be like, okay, well, now we don't have to work as hard because we're still earning more than what the risk-free rate is.
That makes sense. Yeah. And that's why I say it. It's like there's a lot of different factors that can, that impact us. And I think at the end of the day, like, obviously this can be very overwhelming if you're just starting out. And that's why we're going to the basics. At the end of the day, by you building your financial foundation, you're going to create options for yourself. So when these things are going on, it's not so scary. You have that reassurance that you have that freedom, that peace of mind, that security to, you have that control of where exactly is it that you want to go based on the information that's being presented in front of you.
Correct.
Like I mentioned last episode, building your financial foundation is like building a house. And so when you start building a house, you're not going to start with the roof. You're not going to start with the kitchen cabinets, the kitchen layout. You're going to start with the blueprint of exactly what you envision the entire house to look like, and then building the actual foundation of the house. So the same thing applies here with your finances. If you are someone who is experiencing a ton of debt and has very little savings, we built out the ideal service for you. We are a financial planning service, and we specialize in helping first-time wealth builders with less than $500K in assets achieve financial freedom. We offer 3 service tiers to help you build wealth. Today, we will focus on the starter service, and this service is for you if you're ready to start focusing on budgeting, paying off debt, and building your savings. So if this sounds like something you're interested in implementing for yourself and getting your financial journey started, I highly recommend you schedule an introductory call with us, and we're more than happy to assess where is it that you are in your financial journey and how exactly we can help you. If we're not the right fit for you, we're more than happy to point you in the direction to find you the right person that is able to help you out. So with this, we'll wrap up today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and make sure to subscribe to a show so you never miss an episode. You can follow us on Instagram at Building Wealth from Scratch, at Wealth with Jerry, at It's Bianca Ariana. Let us know in the comments if you took anything away from our episode today. You can help us by growing by liking and sharing this episode, and we'll see you next month. Thanks. Bye.
Confianza Wealth Management is a registered investment advisor in the state of California. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where Confianza Wealth Management and its representatives are properly registered or exempt from registration. This video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute individualized advice or a guarantee that you will achieve a desired result. You should consult with an appropriate tax and/or financial advisor for advice specific to your situation. All expressions of opinion reflect the judgment of the host/interviewee on the date of the program and are subject to change. The information presented is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. Discussions should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell or a solicitation of an offer to buy or sell the investments mentioned. A professional advisor should be consulted before implementing any of the strategies discussed. Investments involve varying degrees of risk, and there can be no assurance that any specific investment or strategy will be suitable or profitable for a client's portfolio. All investment strategies can result in profit or loss.